Welcome to Sports Management Podcast, where you will hear interesting sports management professionals share their stories, experiences, and passion for the sports management industry. I am your host, Marcus Philipsson. Today's guest is Spyros Capralos, the president of the Hellenic Olympic Committee, the European Olympic Committee, and a member of the International Olympic Committee. Mr. Capralos was born 1955 in Athens, where he studied economics at the University of Athens and later did an MBA in France. He was a professional water polo player and competed in 2 Olympic Games, Moscow in 1980 and Los Angeles in 1984. In 1992, he became a member of the General Assembly of the Hellenic Olympic Committee, and his sports management career took off. In 2004, he was appointed by the Prime Minister as General Secretary of State and the City Manager of the Olympic Games in Athens 2004. He is President of the Hellenic Olympic Committee since 2009. In 2019, he became a member of the International Olympic Committee, and in 2021, he was elected President of the European Olympic Committees. He is also working outside of sports, where he is acting as President of the shipping company Star Bulk Carriers. Moreover, he has been president of the Athens Stock Exchange and the Federation of European Stock Exchanges. He's been CEO of Ocean Bulk Containers and of Bank of Athens. He has also founded one of Greece's most well-known brands for feta cheese. So get your notebooks ready, because there is a lot to learn from this man in the next 45 minutes. Spyros Capralos, welcome to Sports Management Podcast.
Thank you for having me with you. It's always a pleasure to talk about sport.
Definitely. And you have a lot of experience. You are the president of the Hellenic Olympic Committee. You are the president of the European Olympic Committee, and you're also a member of the International Olympic Committee. So can you tell us a little bit about these different roles and what you do?
All right. Well, I've been president of the Hellenic Olympic Committee, which is the Greek Olympic Committee, as most people know, since 2009. But before that, I had a sport career because I was an athlete and I competed twice in the Olympic Games. And I think that made me become passionate about sport. And when the opportunity came, I decided to run for the presidency of the Greek Olympic Committee. And it happened in 2009. And since then, I'm president. I've been president for this is my 4th term. And in the meantime, I got involved with the European Olympic Committees. European Olympic Committee is an organization comprising of the 50 European Olympic Committees. At the beginning, I was elected as a member of the board. And then back last year, my fellow presidents of the European Olympic Committees voted for me to become president and lead that organization. And in the meantime, in 2019, the IOC decided and honored me and making me the IOC member in Greece. It's something very important, especially in this country, because the Olympic Games started from Greece, and it's very important to have the title of International Olympic Committee member in Greece.
Yeah, definitely. And so when you have these 3 roles simultaneously, what is it that you contribute with from these different positions?
Well, it's for every position you try to contribute, and it's something different. In the Hellenic Olympic Committee, you try to develop and to help elite athletes from the country to prepare better and to Olympic Games, to make the dream come true, because that's a dream of every athlete, to compete in the Olympic Games. And in Greece, we have an additional task and responsibility, as Greece enters first in the Olympic Stadium at the parade of the athletes, reminding the world that the Olympic Games started from Greece. So it's a very important role. And of course, I've been president at a period where things are difficult because we had a financial crisis in Greece. And at the same time, the whole world is in crisis right now. So it's not easy. And we had the crisis of COVID, which also affected tremendously sport. From the European Olympic Committee side of view, we organize major events like the European Games every 4 years. Next year, we're having the 3rd edition in Poland. And we have about 18 Olympic sports where we provide direct qualification or indirect qualification for the Olympic Games of Paris of 2024. So that's a very important event. At the same time, we try to promote sport in the youth, to give the chance to the young athletes to get involved in multi-sport events. And we host the European Youth Olympic Festival, the winter edition and the summer edition. Next year, we have the winter edition happening in January in Italy and the summer edition happening in July in Slovenia. These are very important events because many of the athletes who participate and win or do well in these events, later on in their career, they become medalists in the Olympic Games. So it's a great platform to provide young athletes the opportunity to participate in a high-level event. And of course, there are many issues that involve the other Olympic committees, like the possibility of getting additional funding from European Union, from other sources, from marketing. We try to help and develop, and it serves also as an educational tool because we have our own strategic plan. And right now, the main issues that we face is climate change, ESG matters, equality in sport. These are important. And finally, we have also a group of 9 smaller countries, smaller Olympic committees, who organize their own games, the games of the small states of Europe. Very important event for them as well, because that gives them the chance. It's the countries that have a population of 1 million people and less, the countries that give them possibility in these games to win medals and to show to the governments, to show their people, and to give them pride for the achievements of their athletes. So Europe is very diverse, and we have different tasks for everybody. Now, for the International Olympic Committee, there are specific responsibilities that are assigned by the president of the IOC, Thomas Bach. I'm currently in 2 very important commissions. The one is called Olympic Solidarity. That's the commission that deals with the money, and there's a lot of money in the IOC that is distributed around. So it's, always when you talk about financial issues and where the money will be distributed, it's always a very delicate issue. And because 90% of the funds from the International Olympic Committee are distributed between the international sport federations and the national Olympic committees of the 206 countries. The other commission that I'm involved is the one called Corporate Communication and Public Affairs. That's also quite important with the developments in the world and the different crises, the different wars, the different situations that are happening. I think this is a commission that gives guidance to the various stakeholders of the Olympic movement of what we're facing and how we should be dealing with. So in brief, that's what I'm doing. I have my hands full, I can assure you.
Yes, it seems like it, and a lot of important tasks also that you mentioned. So if we talk about the distribution of funds that you mentioned, for example, how is it decided on how this is distributed?
Okay, well, just to give you an idea, the International Olympic Committee on a 4-year term, which includes the 2 Olympic Games summer and winter edition, has revenues of approximately $7 billion. It's a big amount, mostly coming from the broadcasting rights of the games, but also from a program that IOC is having with in marketing, where we have a list of what we call top sponsors who are partners of the International Olympic Committee for many years, and some are newer ones, of course. And so in total, we have this 7 billion. More or less, 10% of that money goes to cover the administrative expenses of the International Olympic Committee. And then the other 90% is the one that really finances sport in the world. Because, as I said, some of the money goes to international sport federations. Mind you that in the Olympic movement, there are different federations. Some are stronger, some are weaker. The money is distributed according to what we call the value of the different criteria that with the value of the sports. So in reality, the bigger federations get more money, but also smaller federations, smaller sports that would not have the opportunity to get funding otherwise, thanks to the Olympic Games, they get quite substantial amounts of money that permits them to develop the sports around the world. And that's why there is so much competition among the sports, want to remain in the program, for new sports to enter into the program, because they think that this way, not only they get a lot of funding, but they get a lot of visibility, because in the Olympic Games, it's the only time around every 4 years that every sport is presented to the audience, and many people, it's the only chance that they have to see sports that they normally don't see. On the other hand, the other amount of money is going to the National Olympic Committees, of course, obliging them not to use other sponsors than the sponsors of the International Olympic Committee. But this is also a direct source of funding that is very helpful to the National Olympic Committees to develop their programs. And also there are separate programs that they vary from time to time, and the International Olympic Committee is funding them, with one that I think has been the most important in the last years, which has been the Olympic Refuge Foundation, which is dealing with refugee items. And I think that one of the biggest accomplishments was to have a refugee team competing for the first time in Rio. And that continued later on in Tokyo, and it will continue, because I think that these people also deserve to be part in this big event called Olympic Games.
Definitely. And the funds that go to the national committees, are those distributed in terms of size of the country and amount of athletes?
Well, there are different criteria. Of course, it has to do with the size of the country. It has to do with the size of the teams, of the athletes and teams who compete in the Olympic Games. It has to do also with the size and the commercial value that these countries have. For example, the United States get a bigger portion of that money because, first of all, from the TV rights, the NBC, which is the broadcaster for the United States, is the one that is paying the biggest amount of money. And on the other hand, many of the sponsors are US-based companies. Therefore, there is a separate agreement from the US Olympic Committee to receive a bigger amount of money. But I think that every Olympic Committee gets a fair amount of money. It's really very helpful, because I don't think that any Olympic Committee could raise as much by their own efforts. So therefore, everybody is thankful to be under the umbrella of the International Olympic Committee and get these funding opportunities.
I'm sure. And you mentioned the top sponsors, and a previous guest on this podcast has been Michael Payne, which I'm sure you're aware of.
Of course. Mike was the one who started, under the presidency of President Samaranch, who started this marketing program and this top sponsors program, which has been so helpful. And therefore, we are all, when we speak about Michael, we are all very thankful to him for what he has done.
What I heard was that for the upcoming Olympic Games, that the top sponsor might have an opportunity to have their brand together with the Olympic logo for that year's event.
Well, these are quite complicated discussions because it depends on what kind of rights the IOC will give the sponsors. In the Olympic Games, it's, I think, the only sport event that in the venues, there is no direct advertising for the sponsors. And, you don't have billboards, but you only have the boards about the look of the games of the city that and the country that organizes the Olympic Games. And up to now, this has been respected, and there has not. Now, sponsors are also trying to find other ways to, of course, because they pay a lot of money, to find ways how to promote themselves and how to promote their companies. So I think this is a going on discussion, and I hope that, and I'm sure that the best solution will be found.
So when you talked about the Hellenic Olympic Committee, you said that you are supporting the different sports and the athletes to give them the best opportunities. How much does it help when you work with that you have been a professional athlete yourself, that you can put yourself into their shoes, so to speak?
Well, I think that having gone through the efforts that today's elite athletes are going through and finding the difficulties, What I try from my side is by sympathizing with them, trying to find solutions to the big problems that they have, because the problems are not only financial issues. Financials because they need to prepare under good conditions. They need to participate in various events, and then finally to be able to get their qualification. But they have other issues as well. Some issues have to do with lack of proper training facilities, also old equipment that unfortunately sport is progressing, and they need to have better equipment. And then, of course, it has to do with medical, it has to do with insurance, it has to do with various issues that the athletes are facing. And also the biggest problem, an issue and challenge that they have is what they're going to do when they end up their career, their sport career. Because, it's very difficult in today's world to be a professional athlete at high level and at the same time to continue your studies or to be able to work. And unfortunately, one day, an athlete has to stop. And at that time, the biggest difficulty that he has is that he has to enter into society from scratch in most cases, while he or she is of a certain age, and it's not that easy. But on the other hand, it's a fantastic advantage to have an athlete in your company, because the athlete has learned to fight, to be disciplined, to work hard, and I think he can be a tremendous asset in every company. So it's something that we need to combine and to help the athletes to find their way later on.
Yeah, I completely agree. And talking about Greece in particular, you said with lack of venues and so on, there are a lot of venues after the 2004 Olympics that they are empty. And of course, with the financial crisis, that has put a lot of strain on the country in general. So do you really see that this is an issue for the Greek athletes?
It is an issue. Unfortunately, we missed an opportunity after the 2004 Olympic Games to continue organizing major sport events, something that we could have done because we had the first-class facilities. Unfortunately, that was not the case. Unfortunately, also, there was no plan on how to utilize those facilities after the Games. So many of them became white elephants. Later on, though, we started exploring possibilities, and now I think that most of the facilities are being utilized, except the old airport of Athens, that now there's a big real estate development that's happening there. So I think that it will find also a way of how to do it. The athletes, though, they have problems because the facilities mostly that are in the hands of the government, they are not well maintained. And so that does not help the efforts of our athletes. To facilitate them, most of the money that we get from the International Olympic Committee goes for the preparation of the athletes through their federations. But sometimes also federations, some federations, not many, hopefully. There was a problem when there was a financial crisis and they were not using the money for what it was intended to. So we changed our platform. Then now we're giving the money directly to the athletes through the federations, but knowing a specific plan of the athletes, and then we control whether the money has been spent there. On the other hand, also because the Greek state stopped funding the Olympic Committee because of the crisis, we had to find other ways to explore funding opportunities. Therefore, on one hand, we used to the maximum some of the assets that we have. One of it is the old stadium in the center of Athens, the first venue of the modern Olympic Games. We transformed it to a museum where people can get in, they can get headphones and listen to the history in 11 different languages. See also a collection of the Olympic torches and the Olympic posters, and see beautiful pictures from the first Olympic Games. And as such, this has become a major source of revenues. And also we host some events there, some concerts, some company events that also add to the revenues that we have. On the other hand, also, we created a program that we called it Adopt an Athlete on the Way to the Olympic Games. That program gives the possibility to private people or companies to adopt from a list of about 100 top athletes and to help them during their preparation and pay their costs. They do it in different ways. Some hire the athletes, some provide direct help, some pay directly the airplane tickets or the hotels where they have to go to prepare themselves outside Greece. And this is a huge help for the athletes, just to understand that when we first introduced the program, we had 53 athletes that were adopted before the Rio Games. Greece got 6 medals, and all 6 medals were from athletes who were part of this program. So you can understand how much those athletes were helped to succeed. And then again in Tokyo, we had the athletes. And now in addition to that, we have included for every athlete, even if we don't find the whole amount that they're requesting, or because in many cases we find the whole amount that the athletes need, we still provide them other services, like they get full medical and dental cover in the best hospitals in Athens and Thessaloniki, the second largest city. We offer them the possibility to use some for the transportation of themselves and their equipment, because some sports have a lot of expensive equipment, like for sailing, for rowing, for canoeing. So they have to transport the equipment as well. So we have a partnership agreement with a company that is having ferries going to Italy. And then we also provide them the best gyms in Athens and Thessaloniki for the athletes to go there and train there, to go to do special ergometric results so that they can see their progress in their physical condition. And finally, because that has to do with also their future, we have agreements with private universities so that they can, through e-learning, they can get a degree, an undergraduate degree, or even a postgraduate degree. So I think this is important, to give the possibility to the athletes, to the elite athletes, to, as I said, to do the dream come true.
Yeah, definitely. It's vital, I would say. As you mentioned, that if the Greek state is not funding any of the Olympic Committee, I mean, it's all up to you and to private investors. And of course, that makes it more difficult.
Yes. In every country, the funding of the Olympic committees is done in a different way. In our case, right now, we get approximately 10 to 15% of our budget from the state, and that's it.
Oh, okay.
In some other countries, it's much more. Or in some other countries, through legislation, Olympic committees get a portion of the lottery's money, or so that was done by legislation or different sponsorship agreements, something that we don't have anymore. We did used to have it, but our lottery and betting company was privatized. Unfortunately, at the time, the state did not put any clause for the funding of the Olympic Committee. Therefore, whatever we do, we have to do it by ourselves.
Talking about hosting the games, we mentioned before that Greece, of course, hosted it in 2004. There are costs associated with hosting the games, and as you mentioned, that Greece didn't utilize very well their stadiums afterwards. So I know some ideas have been that it should always be in Greece due to the Greek heritage of the games, or maybe to have a more sustainable approach, that you have venues that you can, put up and then take down after the games. What is your opinion on this matter?
That we would need hours to discuss, but a quick answer to that is that, first of all, I believe that the Olympic Games have become so big and so important because they go to different places and they give the opportunity to all 5 continents to organize them. And I think this is important that it continues like that. Second, I think International Olympic Committee has realized that it's not worth constructing new facilities for some sports and for some facilities that would remain empty after the Olympic Games. Therefore, we have changed the role that we see things. We are looking into temporary facilities more than what it was happening in the past, because in the past, one of the criteria was to have big facilities with a number of spectators. which is not the case anymore. It is important, but it's not the criteria that funds international federations more. And finally, I think that, and we do that in also the European Games, we do not oblige countries to create new facilities, but to refurbish existing ones, because that remains as a legacy. Therefore, I think everybody is trying to reduce the cost for organizing major events. But in Greece, we said about the sport facilities that are not fully utilized. But very few people speak about the positive legacies that the Olympic Games of 2004 left to Greece, which were huge. And I can tell you that they are being used every day by every citizen living in this country. For example, we have a new airport. We have lots of highways, peripheral roads. The road system transformed Athens. We have a new metro that did not exist at the time. We have a new tram. So on the transportation side, there had been huge infrastructure projects for the Olympic Games, but these are so important for the daily life of everybody, and especially in a country that lives out of tourism. The hotels were refurbished. The port of Piraeus, where we had cruise ships that served as hotel during the Olympic Games. And of course, we have now a very modern mobile telephony, which is one of the best in Europe and the world. We had a lot of infrastructure projects regarding our energy and electricity that helped, because in the summer it's very hot here in Greece. And in the past, before those investments, the air conditioning system was making the whole energy system of the city falling down. And now everything is working very well. And students got also their part, because there were new university halls that were built, and the ones that existed were refurbished. The police, the hospitals, everybody got their share. They modernized themselves thanks to the Athens 2004 Olympic Games. Therefore, the legacies are everywhere, also in sport, but in sport less, because we had those white elephants that attracted the interest of everybody for not being used afterwards. But the legacies of the Olympic Games were much more, and if you had to weight these things, you would say that the Olympic Games were very good for the city, for the country, and for the citizens of Greece.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And as I mentioned to you before, I lived in Greece for a couple of years, and I can vouch for everything that you said there with the metro and the infrastructure, and that it's really good and, of course, helpful in daily life. But for athletes specifically, maybe, as you said, it's a lack of training facilities. And so although for the legacy for Greece at large is huge, maybe just specifically for athletes, it wasn't the development that you could have hoped for.
The problem is that those facilities were done for 2004. The equipment was put, new equipment. But since then, there has not been put any new money for that. I was there yesterday because we celebrated 40 years of the main Olympic stadium that was created for the Athens Games, because it was built in 1982. And only now, recently, the government decided to use some of the monies that they have to invest to improve, to do some badly needed maintenance of the stadium, especially its roof, but also all the surroundings of the stadium, and changing the lighting system, changing many things, cleaning it. So only recently the government decided to do that. And I think this is a major development and something very positive, because this stadium, again, is being used now a lot, not anymore from the football teams that used to play there, but it's being used by basketball, by many. 17 Olympic sports are hosted there for training and for competition. So it's a very important complex, and some of it has commercial usage, and some of it has private and sport usage. So it's good.
Yeah. Is this Oaxaca that we talked about?
This is Oaxaca, exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
This is Oaxaca. Oaxaca, we celebrate yesterday its 40 years of existence.
That's great. And
Yes.
that's used to be also the national stadium, right? But not anymore. For the soccer team, I was thinking.
Yes. Well, still the soccer team is playing there, the national soccer team, but then we had some private clubs that played there, and that gave some revenues to ACA, but also additional costs. So I'm not sure that was the best usage of ACA. But basketball is utilizing it. We have a big complex of 11 swimming pools. It's the biggest complex in Europe of swimming pools, and it's operative. We have a velodrome, we have a tennis complex, we have different facilities and training facilities.
Yeah, the legacy is there for sure. Now it sounded a little bit negative with some of the venues, but as you mentioned, there are a lot of course, great stadiums there today, and Marble Stadium, the old Olympic Stadium as well, and that was a museum, and I encourage everyone who is in Athens to go see that because that's fantastic.
It is, and thank you very much, because this is something unique. It's the venue of the first modern Olympic Games. It's a venue that was used in 2004 for the archery competition, but also it's the venue where the marathon race finished in the Olympics, but also the authentic marathon race that we have every year in Athens in November. The finish is at this stadium, and it's always you have goosebumps when you see the runners coming in the stadium. They feel exactly the same. It's a great moment in their lives to be able to finish the marathon.
And in the introduction, when we talked about your involvement in the different committees, I didn't mention that you were also appointed by the Prime Minister as the Secretary General at the Olympic Games 2004. So you were, of course, heavily involved also in those games.
Yes, I was involved, and all my life has been in sport. Therefore, the Olympic Games was the biggest and the greatest event sport event organized in my country, and so I could not accept the invitation when they asked me to join the organizing committee, and later on when the Prime Minister asked me to become Secretary of State.
Of course. This feels like, experiences of multiple lifetimes that you have managed so far. You have done so many things in sports, but you have also done many things outside of sport. You have been the president of the Athens Stock Exchange. You have been the CEO of Ocean Bulk Containers Company. You have worked for Bank of Athens. So, can you give us, a short timeline of your career? Just very short. And also, if you can say what you have learned, what you have brought with you, like knowledge from these that you implement now in what you do.
Well, it has been a long life, sporting life and business life at the same time, because I was an athlete, and at the same time I had to work, and I was very happy to work. At the time I was working in international banking, and I spent time in different places around the world, which gave me an opportunity to understand better the different cultures, business and living cultures. I've lived in France, in Paris, in London, in Milan, in New York, and working at different jobs. And then at a certain point of my career, I decided to come back to Greece. I came back because I was a banker for the first 10 years of my life. Then I became one of the executive vice chairman of the National Bank of Greece, which was at the time the largest bank in Greece, continuing my banking career. When the Olympics came, I gave up into my banking career and went with 1/3 of the money that we're earning in the bank at the time to do my dream, because I couldn't have lived without having worked in the Olympic Games and in this big project of Greece. After the Olympic Games, I was offered the job to run the Athens Stock Exchange at the time where it was privatized, and it was a great challenge to be able to make a state company run in an effective way that a private company is working. It was a good time for Greece because we opened the market to foreign international investors. There was lots of money that came into the Greek market, and we saw the Greek market, the Greek stock market doing well. At the same time, my colleagues in Europe, they voted for me and they made me president of the European Stock Exchange Federation, which was good. And then after 6 years in the exchange, and I thought that there was not much more that I could do there, So I decided to do something in something that Greece and Greeks are excelling around the world, and I had not the chance to do it. So that was shipping. I got into shipping in 2011, beginning of 2011, and I'm still in shipping. Now I'm the chairman of the largest public dry bulk shipping company listed in New York. And we have a company with 128 vessels that is doing very well. We did very well, but now things are becoming more difficult because the world is entering into recession, and China, which is our number one market, is not doing that well. And so when China is not doing that well, then the whole shipping part that I'm doing. So that's briefly what I've done. I learned a lot from sport and from business and from different businesses and from different cultures. It's important to be able to speak to the languages of the different people because you can communicate better this way. So I made the effort when I lived in Italy to speak Italian and to learn Italian. In France, the same. You know, every experience has helped in the next jobs that I had in my life. And sport was also very, very good because it makes you become very disciplined, very respectful to everybody that you work with. And like your opponents, it's the same thing in the business world. And I'm very happy that I've done all these things.
Yeah, I'm sure. And yeah, that's what I would say, that as an athlete, that of course you learn how to work hard, how to prepare, how to win, how to lose. Then you mentioned
mainly how to lose, because when you learn how to lose, then you enjoy even more when you win.
That's true. And I mean, that goes, winning and losing is in business as well, of course. So, you know, being through that as an athlete will also help you in your working career. Then you mentioned the languages, you speak 4 languages. And I mean, that must be so helpful when you're in the European Olympic Committee talking to, because I mean, French, specifically French, is spoken in several countries, as well as English, of course.
Well, you know, it's being able to communicate with people in their language is important. And right now, you know, the offices of the European Olympic Committees are located in Rome. So I need to go in Rome and speak Italian. So I'm happy to be able to speak Italian again. The Olympic movement has 2 official languages, English and French. So this is also, the French language helps me every time. And Greek doesn't help very much, but it's okay.
It's a difficult language. I'm trying to learn it myself. I'm so-and-so, to be honest. But
it is indeed.
A lot of words comes from the Greek language. So if you know that, it can help you, I think, in some learning other languages as well.
It's true. It helps in sense and in certain sciences. In science, particularly, there are many Greek words, so that helps.
Yeah, now we have gotten the timeline of your career and so many highlights and great experiences. But has there been any bumps on the road in your career? And if so, how did you overcome them?
Oh, there have been many. There have been many. You know, it's not easy when you work in an international environment. Sometimes you progress. Sometimes some other people progress faster than you. But what you learn is that you need to continue working hard, fighting, and hopefully one day some people will realize the good job that you're doing. You know, I've been trying to become an IOC member for many years, and it was not happening. It was not happening for different reasons. But, you know, I kept doing my job and trying to convince everybody that I was the right person in Greece for the International Olympic Committee. And it happened at the end. The same thing in the business world. You know, in some cases, it was not easy. At a certain point, I tried to do a business creating, actually, we created an industry from scratch. It was a greenfield operation. We did a feta cheese factory in the northwestern part of Greece. I put together a group of investors. I put also my own personal money. And we created that factory in record time. I had not planned it correctly. I was the CEO of the company. I had not planned everything correctly. I had not planned the part of sales and distribution. So we're left with big inventories the first year of production. So even if the product was good, it was a bumpy road, and we nearly lost all of our money. Then we managed to turn it around, and then we sold the company, but it was difficult times. And the feta cheese still exists in Greece. It's one of the leading brands. It's called Feta Epirus.
Okay. That's a good thing to have on your CV, so to speak. That in Greece, I mean, it's that and olive oil. I mean, it's that's holy.
Yes, but when you do it as a business, and we tried to become the leading feta cheese company, we had difficulties, and it was not easy. It was difficult times in my life.
I'm sure. Backing up to the IOC membership, I think many people will be interested how that process is. Is there an annual voting and you need a certain amount of votes, or how is that process to be an IOC member?
Well, there's a limit to the number of people who can become IOC members, because you can have, the maximum number is 115, out of which 15 can come from the athletes, directly from the athletes who vote for the athletes. The other are 15 presidents of national Olympic committees. There are 15 presidents of international sport federations, and there are 60 people who are chosen on merit. There is a commission, a nomination commission, that receives CVs, proposals, and from different sources. They do the work just to try to find out. There are some rules. First of all, you cannot have more than one IOC member in a country. But of course, if you have somebody from on merit, and then you have somebody from an international sport federation or from the National Olympic Committee or an athlete, you can still have more. But on an individual basis, you can only have up to one. And that makes it more difficult. Princess Anne is the one leading that nomination commission. And, you have to go through a lot of scrutiny on various aspects, including ethics, which is very important in today's world, especially because IOC had many issues in the past for some of the members regarding the selection of Olympic cities in the past. This process has changed because everybody is trying to improve. So this is it. So that's how it happens. And then if the nomination committee proposes you, then it goes to the executive board of the International Olympic Committee, and then the executive board decides, depending also on the vacancies, to propose or not to the session, which is the General Assembly, the members who vote. In the last years, there has been a lot of effort to bring a more gender equal membership in the IOC. So in the last years, there have been many more women that have been introduced to the IOC and becoming members. Right now, I think it's about 35% of the members are women. And this number of women is growing. I think we'll end up reaching the 50-50, as we have reached the 50-50 in athletes' participation in the Olympic Games in Paris.
That's great. There's so much to talk about. I feel like we could sit here for hours, but we are closing up on the time here. So the final question that I ask everyone is, if you could choose the next guest on this podcast, who do you think that I should talk to?
I think that, if you can manage to have him, the president of the International Olympic Committee, Thomas Bach, because Thomas Bach had a remarkable career. He was an Olympic champion, gold medal winner in the Olympic Games. And then he was among the athletes who created this athletes movement so that the athletes have a voice in sport. And then he grew up in the ladder of the International Olympic Committee, and he was chosen as president of the International Olympic Committee, and he has done a great job leading and bringing the International Olympic Committee at the level it is. So especially in today's world, that sport is required to play a major role in societies. I think the president of the International Olympic Committee would be the one to have. He's very difficult, though, because he has such a busy program.
I'm sure.
I wish you luck.
Yeah, that would be fantastic if that could happen. Spyros Capralos, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the Sports Management Podcast.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to the Sports Management Podcast. Please hit the subscribe button so you don't miss out on any upcoming episodes. Also, feel free to leave a comment about what you thought about this episode. If you want to get in contact with me, send an email to sportsmpodcast@gmail.com or hit me up on Facebook, Twitter or Instagram @sportsmpodcast.